All right, guys, good morning. It's about that time. Chris Brooks here with you. Another edition of the Gridiron Show here on a Wednesday. Brought to you by Capital Ortho. That's capitalortho.com. By Sound and Communications, soundcomav.com. And Country Pleasing Sausage. You can find it, you know where to find it. You can find it everywhere. You can also find it at Country Meat Packers in Florence, the best butcher shop you guys are going to find anywhere. We're also brought to you by The Rogue in Jackson, men's fine clothing. My friend Luke out there, tell him I said, hey, if you see him. Here on a National Chicken Wing Day version of the show. That's always a nice thing. Yeah, that's true. It's National Chicken Wing Day. So, of course, that will be, at least on some level, a part of the conversation this morning. Hope you guys are having a good day, having a good morning. A couple of things I want to get to on the magazine. We have knocked out just about every preview that we're going to have in there. And again, the plan right now is to have the top 10 teams in every classification across the board. And hopefully have time to go back and I'd like to cover all of 7A. And we've toyed with 6A. It gets difficult when you're starting to cover the bottom half of the schools because they don't want to be covered as much as the top half for obvious reasons. But we're going to do the best that we can to get to that. But working on that. And, the funny thing is with that is, like I'm by the time I'm done with this, along with Brandon Shields, shout out to my buddy Brandon, does a great job helping me put this together every year. You start coming across all these stories, and I'm a big recruiting guy, so I'm obviously familiar with what goes on, but there's a difference in the recruiting part of this and in the high school football part of this. Those are two very different discussions. So I'm coming across all of these kids that are going to these big places, and that's great. But then I'm also coming across all of these just really good high school football stories. But and this kind of involves both. Like I'm coming across Vicksburg yesterday. Shout out to my buddy Chris Lacey out there, the head coach of Vicksburg, awesome guy. And I think they're going to have a good season. But that's a 5A school. They'll be in our rankings. Had a really good year 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a rough year. Then last year kind of rebounded, got back on track. They have a good group of kids coming through there, especially in their junior class. But look, I'm going through there. They have 3 wide receivers, a junior that's committed to Ole Miss right now. They have, not Vicksburg. I'm going to backtrack here. Vicksburg also is loaded at wide receiver. I'm going to go back. I'm going to talk about Macomb. But Vicksburg has a junior class coming through that's going to get them going again. They have a ton of skill guys. They have a new quarterback that he played some last year, split time with another guy, threw for 1,500 yards. And I mean, a really big guy, like 5'11", 240, big arm. But they have all these skill guys coming through in their junior class. I think they're going to have a good year. And then flip this around, and I'm covering Macomb because with Macomb, I'm covering they're also going to be one of the teams that's ranked, but they have a class of wide receivers that are coming through there that have a chance to be, they probably are, as if they're not the best group coming through the state, they're right there. They have a kid that's coming through, that's coming to Ole Miss. They have a kid that's coming into South Alabama, and I'm looking them up here because I forget the third. Another Division I kid, Ole Miss commit, South Alabama commit, and they have Sheldon Isaac that's already committed to South Florida. So that's a 4A school we're talking about there that has 3 wide receivers that caliber that are going to play big time football next year, and that crosses over high school football and recruiting. But I'm running over several of those kinds of stories that by the time I'm done with this, I'll know more high school football along with Brandon than anybody in the state. And that's true every year, just because you have to go over just a mountain of content. But still on track for that. We'll have digital magazine out next weekend. Practice is underway for the academies. Public school starts on Monday. Then next weekend we will throw out our digital magazine, send this thing off to print, and have it at a lot of these high school football games on the first Friday night of the regular season. Um, we don't sell it like we used to. We still sell them online, but distributing it this way, we'll revisit this next summer to see if we want to get something out midsummer, but it's difficult to do that. That's another topic for another day, though. National Chicken Wing Day. Want to get into that. We had a Powerball winner yesterday in Mississippi. And I usually wouldn't go down that road. However, I pulled that story up this morning. I'm just kind of seeing what's going on around the Magnolia State, and found this in the Magnolia Tribune. $1 million lottery ticket sold in Tupelo yesterday. Fella, I don't know if you've claimed your ticket, but I would advise you go get that. $2 Powerball ticket. Sprint Mart 38 in Tupelo came up big with $1 million. I don't know if I've ever bought a lottery ticket. I know that might be crazy to some. Maybe I will now, but I haven't. Not really big into it. But yeah, fella out of at least I hope that's a Mississippi guy. I hope it's not another state. Somebody that came over here and got a lottery ticket and left. Hopefully that's somebody that's over here. But still, that's a big deal. Had that happen. And the other news, and this is going to be a short show today. I'll probably, we'll probably do 15, 20 minutes here real quick. And then I got to get back to the grind here with this magazine. This story that came out with the MHSAA, and look, these things are needed. High school football practice is shutting down if the temperature gets below a certain level. Now, look, when I first saw that story, I saw a lot of comments about it. And I think it's just a misunderstanding of exactly what this is. Initially, it came out, hey, anything under 92 degrees temp is going to be shut down practice time. What they're actually using is something called the wet bulb globe temperature. One reason you do this is because you can easily pull up an app, and you can use your phone to do this, to pull a truer temperature of what's going on with the weather that takes all kind of different factors into play on top of just temperature. And that number is going to be lower than just the regular outdoor heat temperature. But if that number gets down to 92, then you shut down practice because you're reaching dangerous levels. Look, I haven't dove into that enough just to know exactly the ins and outs, but anything that's involving player safety, especially here in Mississippi, and we're talking practicing the first week of August, you can't be careful enough. And yeah, you have to practice, and at some point you've got to deal with the heat, but you got to be smart about it. And that's just how that is. It is National Wing Day. And look, you should celebrate this today. I was torn because sometimes I pull up this calendar and we have all of these different things that are going on. Like we could have done a National Lasagna Day today. Obviously, that's typically a big deal, but it's going to get overridden by the National Chicken Wing Day, National Lipstick Day. I mean, some of you can get into that. That's maybe I can't remember the Chicago Bears quarterback. That wasn't a lipstick guy. That was fingernails guy. Is it Marcus Williams, the quarterback of the Bears? He's the guy that painted his fingernails. But yeah, the Lipstick Day doesn't do anything for me. The National Chicken Wing Day does. Look, I could give you several. If I have to go somewhere right now, here just outside of Flowood, Mississippi, to get chicken wings, Wingstop is going to be very high up that list. B-Dubs is going to be high up that list for me. We have a smokehouse here. It's on Highway 471, out where I used to live, Le Bourgeois Estates, out towards that way. It's near Northwest Rankin. You open it up, and the size of these things, these are massive wings. Some of the best wings I've ever had at that place. That place is stellar here if you're in the metro area, the Flowood area. And also, is it Canova Smokehouse here? There's a couple of those in the metro area. There's one out here in Flowood. That place is quality. If you want to celebrate National Chicken Wing Day, you need to get out there and do that. But look, I just wanted to do something live just for a second. I need some feedback on something. Those of you that are going to see this later and you're not part of the live show, send me messages if you would like to, before I publish this and hit send on this magazine being printed. I think I'd like to do a couple of these live shows where people can also send me some submissions and talk about just kind of do a high school football chat thing. I'm going to do that here probably this weekend. If there's a particular thought or time that you guys would rather do that, just shoot me a text, hit me up on our social media feeds at MS Gridiron on Twitter X. Same thing, MS Gridiron on Facebook or Instagram. And I'd like some feedback on that because it helps me make those decisions. Okay, look, that's going to wrap up today. Told y'all just really didn't have a whole lot of time to do it. I've got to knock out this magazine, which takes precedent, but I still want to give y'all something at least every other day. Okay, y'all have a good day. Enjoy National Chicken Wing Day and enjoy the end of your summer. Get ready to support some high school sports. Appreciate you guys. Thanks to Capital Ortho. Thanks to Soundcom. Appreciate those guys. Country Pleasing Sausage and Country Meat Packers out in Florence and The Road for always being part of the show. Y'all have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.